sides. And I just like 3 points for me, and that's if your son or daughter has not made an appointment to meet with us, please have them do that ASAP. There are just so many components to this process, so many things that I see the aha moment on a senior right now in January. Wow, I didn't know that. So this is why we start early. We have met with, I think 75% of my caseload I've met with. I think most of us have really kind of already started with your sons and daughters. And please, we believe that you're a big part of the process as well. We definitely welcome conversations with you. So if you need to come in or if you want to come in and meet with us, we are very open to that. So feel free to do that. So I think it's important that students find the right fit for them. Sometimes the Ivy League is not the right fit. Sometimes UConn is not the right fit. So I really believe that as we start this process so early, that it allows us to really find that right fit. So it could be that, for instance, I love the University of New Haven because I think they have a great criminal justice program. They do a lot of great things in that area. Is that the right fit for everyone? No, but it could be the right fit for someone who really wants that type of program. Sometimes athletically is the right fit. So that there's a lot of components to finding the right fit. And I'm just finishing a book right now called Where You Go Is Not Who You'll Be. And it really does kind of talk about, the Ivies are just not for everyone. And just because you go to an Ivy League school, that does not ensure your success. So there's a lot to it. The right fit is really important. And the other thing that's been very surprising to me is that, it shouldn't be, but it is that this is a different process for everyone. This is different for everyone. We have a number of students, and we're going to encourage this, that apply early action and early decision, and they get their admissions, decisions pretty quickly, and they're done. They know where they're going. Yet there's a whole bunch of other students that don't know where they're going. Maybe they didn't get in early action. I see the anxiety and stress level of our seniors right now. It kind of concerns me a little that, hey, their friends already know what they're doing. They know where they're going. So the point is this, and you really support this at home, kind of drill this down at home, is that this is a different process for everyone. So my son is a baseball player. He's going to Kenyon College. He decided he was going to go there in September. He's done. His friends are still waiting, and his friends are stronger than him academically. So it's just a different process for everyone, and I think that it's important for, we will tell them that, but it's important that you tell them that as well. All right. So we're going to go through this agenda. Each one of us are going to kind of cover a lot of these different topics. These are all very important topics. So you want to go ahead to the next one? This has to be a student-driven process. It has to be. The parents can be involved as much as possible, yes, but really, your son or daughter really has to be involved in this process. You will not, I will not be sitting in the Kenyon biology class next year, nor will I be eating in that great cafeteria. I'd love to because the food's awesome. But the parents are not going to college next year, the students are. So I really believe it's important. Yes, you're paying the bill, yes, you're writing the check, yes, you're a big part of it. But I really believe the student has to be motivated to take care of everything they need to. And number one is, it's not a big part of the way they communicate, is what I've learned over the years, but they really should have their own email address. For some reason, a lot of colleges are still emailing a lot of information to students. So it's important to have their own email address and really check it regularly, because that's how they communicate. There'll be some texting down the road after they apply, but prior to the application, a pre-application communication, a lot of it's email. So it's important for them to have an email address. And they can do a separate one than the one they have. It should be professional. So again, they should own the process. Their responsibility is to actually fill out the applications. I do have one senior parent right now who's doing that for his son. It's just not a good thing, I don't believe. colleges can see to that, especially if they do the essay, if they see the essay, and the essay doesn't correlate to the GPA. So it's really important that the student applications, essays, resumes, portfolios, all that, student-driven process. Parents are involved though, there's no question. The number one thing you can do is on Naviance, we'll show you where that is at some point, is the parent questionnaire. The parent questionnaire is a way for you to kind of tell us a little bit more about your son and daughter when we write our letters of recommendation. That's really important, especially for someone who is new. I was handed a caseload of about 40 students. I didn't really know anyone that well. It was really helpful for me to see that parent questionnaire about some of the students I was talking to on an everyday basis that I didn't know additional information. So parents can certainly fill out that questionnaire. So Naviance is the software that we use. You all can have your own account. I believe we'll talk about that later. The big part for you as a parent is that you can see what's going on in terms of what schools they're putting on their list, what schools that they send applications to. But the big part right now as juniors is developing that list. And across the board, our philosophy is to create a big list. 25, 30 schools is great. I mean, I think that's a good number, especially this time of year. And when they get that list, they do the research. They go to the website, they start to read about certain colleges. You should whittle that list down to maybe 15 or so and start to plan visits in the spring. Now, February, April, no question. I think we all agree that websites are great, view books look awesome, the videos are fantastic. Nothing substitutes the actual presence on a college campus to see what it's all about. You just get the feel of the campus, of the community, of the students. You have to visit, and try to visit when the students are there. That's really important. All right, so college visits is important. Organizing materials, SAT, ACT, registrations. This is one of the first things we talk about in our meetings with the students, and that's register for the March SAT. That's very important, especially that you want to register at the high school that you live closest to. Last August, I had to drive an hour and a half to Massachusetts for my son so he could increase his SAT score. We had to go up Friday night. It was kind of a great bonding experience, actually. He didn't think so, but I did. And Saturday morning, we're in a hotel. The food, it's just not a great situation when he's not familiar with the surroundings. Your kids aren't familiar with the surroundings. So the point is, create the College Board account and go register for the SAT in March and the ACT in April. All right, test prep. There's a lot of, I think, schools have thought on test prep. My thought is that we've committed to Naviance SAT test prep. It is free. We have talked to all the students that we have met with, all of your kids that have come in and met with us. This is a free, it's rigorous, and the student kind of goes on their own pace. So I would recommend that you have your son or daughter start with our test prep through Naviance SAT. After you take the SAT the first time or the second time, if you feel you want to go off and do your own thing and hire a tutor, that's fine. We're not going to discourage you from doing that. But because this is such a new process in terms of the high school committed X amount of dollars to this test prep for all of you, there's no data on it yet. So a year from now, I'll be able to tell you if it really worked or not. Right now, I can't. I'm sorry that your sons and daughters are kind of the first ones to go through this. But I looked at it a little bit. I think it's pretty good. I think it allows the student to kind of go along on their own pace. So I recommend that you do that first before you spend thousands of dollars in test preparation. And meet with your counselor often. I mean, that's important. I've only been here since April, and there are a number of seniors that come see me every day. So encourage your son or daughter to come see us with questions. There are a lot of questions. A lot of things change. There's a lot to the process. All right, so where do I begin with a search? through Naviance or the College Board. Things like, what size do I want? What size enrollment? What size acreage on a campus? That's important. What major? Where do I want to be geographically? These are all things you're going to put into a search that will give you that 30 plus number of colleges. And then you start to whittle it down a little. With a lot of the juniors right now is that they have interest in 3 and 4 different areas. That's great. You just got to find schools that have all those programs. Cost is important, of course. We're seeing a lot of our students looking at schools in the South that seem to be similar in cost to UConn and some of the other state schools here. That's great. That's perfect. That's fine. There's also a number of merit scholarships that reduce the cost. So that has to be, I would assume that has to be a consideration for it. It certainly was for us as a family. So it's really important to find, as I said, 15 or so schools on your list. You go visit, whittle it down to about 8 to 12 in that range, depending on what programs you're interested. 2 schools that I would consider kind of a reach type school. The majority of those schools, 6 to 8 or so, will be just right schools. We're going to talk about that later. I think Mrs. Clark's going to show you some Naviance scattergram data that will really help you kind of hone in on what those just right schools are. And then lastly will be those safety schools, ones that you know you can get in and you know that you can afford. And there's usually about 1 or 2 of those. So that's kind of the really basic outline today. We're going to go through a lot of that. Do I have anything else? Oh yeah, this is important too, of course. I'm noticing a trend. With middle of the road schools, Catholic schools, private schools, that the GPA is really important. Really important. I believe that. When I was at lesser competitive colleges, the GPA was really important. We weren't really looking at the SATs that much. So I think that's a big part. Students can still change their GPA. Your juniors, I know they're into their 2nd semester, but just encourage them to continue to work hard and do well academically. You'll see in scattergram, as you get into Naviance, you can go into all of the different schools, what they call scattergram. Mrs. Clark will show you that. And you'll see that it's quite clear that the GPA is really important in terms of college admission. Standardized test scores will always be important for super competitive schools. No question. Super competitive schools and super competitive programs. Nursing, engineering, physical therapy. We are noticing in our office the growing number of test optional colleges. Schools and there's a bit of a strategy with that as well. We can talk about that individually and as a group. But more and more schools, great schools. Bates was the first school in 1984 to go test optional. And the California school system right now is thinking about test optional. I just heard yesterday that University of Indiana is thinking about test optional. So there's a lot of, it was mostly smaller privates that were doing the test optional. Smaller privates that less competitive. It was a way for them, I think, to look at students, GPA mostly. But we're seeing a lot of Fairfield U, Sacred Heart, Holy Cross, Assumption. We can go on to Providence. We can go on to Quinnipiac, Marist. We can go on and on and on and on with test optional. And that's going to be a strategy down the road. Do I send those test scores? Don't I? What about merit scholarships? There's a lot of questions surrounding test optional. I think it's a great thing. Without a doubt, it's a great thing. I think students really have the confidence now that they can apply to those schools. Students with lower SATs and ACT scores have the confidence to apply to those kinds of schools now. But there is a strategy. I will say there is a strategy in when to send them, when not to send them. Strength of curriculum. I think our counselors do a great job, helping, making sure that your son and daughter's taking the right classes. Certainly to prepare them for the next experience in college. Extracurricular involvement, without a doubt, really important. Essay, I think that there's this growing importance to the essay. I know that our English department does a great job in terms of preparing your students to write that essay. I'm seeing a little bit of a lack of motivation on some of our students to do that essay, though. I'm still reading essays. I have about 4 or 5 students that I'm still reviewing their essays. They're seniors. So the essay is typically the last requirement, the junior English class. We encourage them to fine-tune that essay throughout the summer. I opened it up to anyone who wanted to come in and meet with me in the summertime to talk about their essay. 1 student did it. So I think it's really important to emphasize the importance of the essay and how critical that is in the process. Letters of recommendation, ask in advance. Part of our meetings with your students is we talk about, with your children, is we talk about asking those teachers early on. A lot of them tend to start to write in the summertime, so by the time they leave for their, by the time the junior year is over, they should ask 2 or 3 teachers for letters of recommendation. We write them as well for each student. Interview. This is so important. A number of our students are looking at schools south, right? Demonstrated interest is important. When I say to a student here, have you reached out to the admissions counselor there? They look at me like I have 5 heads. It is so important, if you're looking at schools further away, it is so important to create that connection with the admissions counselor responsible for reading our applications. They have to get to know you. You have to get your son or daughter's name in front of that person. There's been a few students that have great SATs and great GPAs, and they're not getting into some of those schools, and I think it's because they're not showing interest. And one great way to show interest is to reach out to the person who actually reads your application. That doesn't seem to be connecting with a lot of our students. They're not understanding that concept. So I'm kind of surprised by that, actually. So the interview is very important. There's no question. The interview is very important. Some schools don't interview, I get that, but some schools do. Anytime you can have an interview with an admissions person is really important and helpful. Okay, anything on that?
These are our graduation requirements. We require 26 credits to earn a diploma from St. Joseph High School. It includes 4 credits of theology, 4 credits in English, 3 credits in science, 4 credits in math, 3.5 credits in social studies, 2 credits in the same world language, and then elective credits in 4.5, and then there's a variation from the freshman and sophomore courses that they took, whether it was in music, art, theater, that constitutes the rest of the credit requirements. If your son or daughter transferred to St. Joseph High School, their credit requirement might be different based on coursework taken prior to St. Joe's. So if your son or daughter is a transfer student, we highly recommend that they meet with their college or school counselor to make sure that they meet the benchmark and the course requirements in order to earn the diploma from St. Joe's. But also we encourage all your students to meet with their college school counselor when picking their senior courses to make sure that they are picking a strong and rigorous curriculum going into their senior year. So when you think about what classes your students should take senior year, we obviously recommend a most rigorous course of study that is appropriate for your student. All right, you know your student and we know your student. So we are going to recommend courses that are appropriate for them and their achievement and ability. Out of all the courses they could choose, we do require some courses in the senior year, and that's a full credit in English, a half credit in civics, a full credit in math, and a full credit in theology. We also highly recommend a 4th year of science or a 3rd or 4th year of world language, especially if your son or daughter is considering a competitive college or university. All right, we want them to stand out, and these are different requirements. Every school is different. Some will look for just the 2 years. Some are looking for 3 or 4. And when your student meets with us and we go through the different requirements for admission, we'll be able to identify what those requirements are. And your students will be choosing their classes very soon. And if over the course of the summer you're adding schools to your list and you realize you may not have registered for a class that would look best for their application, come see us in the summer, see us at the start of school, and we could adjust the schedule accordingly. But it is very imperative that your son or daughter meets with us regarding course selection to make sure, again, they are choosing those right courses. If your son or daughter is interested in a particular academic program, I'll use nursing as an example. Every nursing program is different in terms of what they require for admission. So you want to make sure that you're taking a look on the college university website at what those requirements are, so so we can make sure that we're placing them in the right courses that best enhance their opportunities for admission. If your son or daughter is a student athlete and they're interested in playing D1 or D2, you want to make sure that they are taking courses that are approved by the NCAA and that they're also registered for the NCAA Eligibility Center, which Mr. Noguera will talk about in just a little bit. And the reason for this is we want your students to take a rigorous course of study because it's going to help prepare them for the rigor of college. Like Mr. Nash, I came from a college university background, and every class, whether it's freshman English 101 to advanced courses in their major course study, every course in a college is inherently rigorous. And we want students to make sure that they are getting that practice now as they move on to the next stage of their educational career. In terms of course selection, you will know this now, your students don't know this yet, but on Tuesday, the 28th, so just this upcoming Tuesday, myself and our academic administration, our principal and assistant principal, will be meeting with the junior class during homework, and we'll be going over the course selection process. So it's really going to be kicking off next week. We're going to go through the requirements, how they make their choices, and we're also going to be talking about some new courses that we're rolling out for next year. We're offering brand new electives in technology and innovation, health and wellness, and business. So we have a lot of new exciting course offerings happening. So we want to make sure that your son or daughter comes to school on Tuesday and that they take good, careful notes during our presentation. And following that, they should make that appointment with their college school counselor so we can start going through what courses they should be taking and different opportunities that are available to them. All right. Thank you.
Morning. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about the college list and what it should look like at this point. On the final list, we like to say that students should have up to 10 schools, but that's for next year. It's okay if they have more schools on their prospective list right now. We want them to be looking at a wide variety of schools. I think that's the best way for them to figure out what is the best fit for them. So they should have a nice mix on their current prospective list of possible or reach schools, maybe a couple of those, maybe that dream school that they've been thinking about since they were 5. Mostly it should be probable or target schools. And then you should also consider, like Mr. Nash said, a few financial safety schools and admission safety schools as well. So as you're creating this list, things to consider are GPA, test scores, required courses. Sometimes if your son or daughter is interested in highly selective programs such as nursing, they may require a year of physics. So it's important to look at those and determine what they need to take next year. And you can also use graph and statistical information on Naviance in order to create this list. And I just wanted to show you a little bit account. And some are comfortable sharing their login information with their parents, so if they are, great. If they're not, and you'd like your own account, you can always contact the counselor, and we're happy to set up a parent account for you so that you'll be able to log in as well. But this is the login page of our fake dummy account, which is actually Lynn Mallon's account. As many of you know, she's our secretary upstairs. So this is the home page that your students are going to see. And a couple of things that I just wanted to show you. If you scroll down all the way to the bottom, there will be a new box here, and that's where they're going to find the Naviance SAT test prep. So that's just an important thing for you to all be aware of. The other thing I wanted to show you is how to do a college search. So if you click on the colleges tab up here, and you scroll down to find your fit, there are a few different search engines that Naviance has available. So for example, if we selected the advanced college search, each of these will take you through different search criteria to help a student narrow a list of schools that would be a good match for them. So as you see, you go through all of these different criteria. So once they select view matches, Naviance will give them a list of schools that fit that search criteria. They can save this search and come back to reference it at any time. So let's say they're an athlete, they're looking at D1 and D2 schools, they can do 2 separate searches and have multiple lists going all at once. But let's say they're interested in this school. Oh, Adelphi, I haven't heard of that before, but let me find out a little bit more. They can click on that and it will take it to Naviance's extended profile on the school. Now, on their side, there should be a little heart button on here, just like on Instagram. We're trying to make this familiar for them. So if they like it, it will be added to the list of prospective schools on their colleges I'm thinking about list. But as you go through here, there's a few different tabs that will show you more information about the schools. And one that's very important for you all to be aware of right now is this admissions tab here. So if you scroll down, this will show you real data that is based on St. Joe's students. And that's really why Naviance is such a valuable tool during this process. As you're doing research on Google or on College Board, it's basing everything off of national statistics. This is St. Joe's specific, so your students can get a better idea of where they're stacking up against students in the past that have been accepted, denied, waitlisted, etc. So you can change the scale of this. Right now we're in the SAT scale, but let's say your student was planning on applying with their ACT score, they could change it to that as well. But as we scroll down, Mrs. Mallon is represented here in this blue icon, and you can see that she is above the average GPA, slightly below the average SAT scores, so this is a really good target school for her, all right? If that blue icon was significantly above the average accepted GPA and the average SATs, then that would be what we would say that might be more of a likelier safety, and if it was below, obviously that would be a reach school. Now what's important is to take note of some outliers, as we call them. So I'm sure you can see that red X, that's about around the GPA that they require, but significantly higher on the SAT scores. So you may wonder, why did that student not get in? That's strange. This could be because that student was applying to a highly selective program. So if your son or daughter is looking at a selective program, nursing, business, engineering, something like that, they may need to look at this with a different lens, okay? So if that's the case, please have them come in and talk to their counselor. So, I think now Mrs. Baird is going to.
Chris, you want to just show them the legend number? Just so they know.
Oh, yeah. So the blue icon is representative of the student, a green check is accepted, and then you may see a dot. That means that the student was waitlisted and maybe accepted, waitlisted, eventually denied, or waitlisted and we're not sure. We never knew what happened over the summertime.
Good morning, everyone. So on to the most important part and the most fun part, in my opinion, of the whole college search is the college visit. So you should definitely start planning now. Where you want to visit, once you have your meeting with us, you can start figuring that out. For February vacation, April vacation, it's great to go, like Mr. Nash said, when students are on campus. You get to see, are they hanging out on the quad? Are they in, the student center? Are they around when you're there? Do they look like students that your son or daughter, thinks that would be students that they wanted to hang around with? So it's really great to go when there are students on campus. If you can't, it's okay. You can also go in the summer. There are still students around at that time. But it definitely is the best to do that when they're there. Visit a variety of schools. We talked about what you're considering. So visit that large public institution like UConn. Visit a smaller private liberal arts college like Fairfield U to get a sense of what you're looking for. So you should have a variety of those schools on your list. Usually in the springtime, a lot of schools will offer open houses for juniors, so definitely take advantage of those. Those are usually on Saturdays in the spring. So take advantage of that. You can schedule all your visits online, or you can call the admissions office. It's really important to schedule those visits and check in with the admissions office when you do go. Some schools do track what we call demonstrated interest. So every time you show up on campus, every time you fill out an inquiry card at a college fair, they're tracking that in their system. So they know that Jane Smith has filled out a card at our college fair. She came to see the admission rep when they were here visiting St. Joe's. She also went on campus sometime in April and had a tour. So they're tracking all of that, so they know that she's really interested in coming to their school. Ask as many questions as you want when you're on your visits. It's a great opportunity, especially with your tour guide. They're usually a student on campus, so they have all the inside information on what's going on campus for your students to find out. We do have a list of questions in our office and in that document resources that you saw there on Naviance. If you have any, if you're wondering what you should ask, you can bring one of those questionnaires along with you. Okay, so what should you do on a college visit? I'm kind of going to go backwards for a second. Before you get there, schedule a little bit of extra time so you can visit the surrounding area. What is around the college that you're looking at? Is it in a big city? Is it in a small suburb? Is there a Walmart or a Target or a pharmacy or a walk-in? So you have, and how can you, see how close they are in proximity to campus? Do you need those things off the campus? So check it out. Is this a place, your student's going to be living there for the next 4 years. So you want to make sure it's a place that they're going to be comfortable with and a place that they definitely can see themselves living. Once you get to campus, definitely check in. Like I said, the demonstrated interest is really important. Take a tour of the campus. They're usually about an hour. So if you've done it before, if you haven't, make sure you wear your comfortable shoes. Definitely attend an information session with the admissions office. It's going to give you a lot of good data that you're going to be able to have when making your decisions. If you're going just on a random day, it's not an open house, you're just doing a regular tour, and your child knows they're interested in something, have them ask if they can sit in on a class. That would be a great thing for them to do, especially if they know they're interested in engineering or nursing. You definitely don't be afraid to make that special request. Also to ask if you can speak with someone in that field of interest. So if they are interested in psychology, they can maybe speak with a professor or a graduate student in that field. If they are offered, definitely set up an interview while you're there on campus. You can kind of get that out of the way. You can interview at any time. It doesn't have to be after you already applied. They will add that to your file. So if you are going, it's a great opportunity to do that. A lot of colleges offer overnight programs. This usually happens when students do get into the school, but some offer it beforehand. So if your child can stay overnight in a dorm, maybe you know somebody or you're going to do one of those programs, that's a great idea too. They get to see the whole experience. Even if you have an older son or daughter and they can go stay with them overnight, one night, just so they get that feel of what it's like to be living on a college campus. Eat in the cafeteria, very important stuff. Is the food good? Because if it's not good, that might, change things a little bit. So you definitely want to make sure that you make some time to have lunch in the cafeteria. Some schools even give you a voucher, so definitely take advantage of that. But in my opinion, it's just so important to visit and visit as many as you can. That's going to give you the best opportunity to decide what's the best fit for your son or daughter throughout the process. Spring break, we have a very long one this year. I know it backs up to Easter, so that might make things a little tricky. But that's a great time to go plan some college visits. Even if you're going away, maybe you're taking a road trip, visit some schools in the area of where you're, taking your vacation. Even if it's not maybe a school that your child's interested in, it's still going to give them an idea of what it's like, a certain school, a big school, a small school. So they definitely will get a feel of that. Okay, I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Shields, and she's going to talk a little bit about
SAT. So the SAT is an aptitude test that measures your critical thinking skills. It tests your ability to analyze and solve problems. There are 3 sections, reading and writing, math, and there is an optional essay. Even though the essay is optional, we still encourage students to take it at least once, as there are some institutions that still look at the essay score. So try to take it at least once when you're registering for the exams. Next, subject tests. It's just an additional opportunity for students to showcase their knowledge on a specific subject. If you are not sure if your child should take the subject test, ask your counselor and we can help you with that decision. Next, ACT. So the ACT is more of a knowledge-based curriculum test. There are 4 sections on this. There is the reading and writing, math, there is a science portion of this exam, and also the optional essay. Same thing as the SAT, we encourage you to still take the essay at least once. The exam is out of 36 points, and there is a and the essay is on a 12-point scale. We recommend taking the SAT and the ACT at least both. So this way you can take it in the spring and decide which exam you did better on, so you can take it again in the spring or the summer or the fall of your senior year. Next, how do I register? Each student will register online. For College Board, it's collegeboard.org. For the SAT, it's collegeboard.org. And for the ACT, with our students. We encourage students to take the exams more than once because most colleges do look at their highest score, also known as super score. And for the ACT, most schools will also look at their highest composite score. So it's important that you take these exams at least more than once. Next, for testing accommodations, if your child has a documented learning challenge and you think that they need accommodations on the SAT or the ACT, contact myself or your child's counselor and we can help you with this process. So next, SAT and ACT dates. We encourage students to take at least one of these exams during their junior year. So then this way they have ample amount of time to retake it, like I said, in the summer or in the fall. So for the ACT, there's one given February, April, and June. And for the SAT, there's one in March, May, June, and there's also an August exam as well. Also keep in mind for registration purposes, usually the absolute deadline is about a month before the exam. So plan ahead. The fall of your senior year can be very busy. So make sure you're planning when you're going to take your exams. So next, test prep options. As Mr. Nash said, Naviance has a wonderful free test prep for all of our students. It's at the bottom of the homepage, and there's reading, writing, math, test prep. I highly encourage that every student at least tries that first. Next, there's other free options like Khan Academy. It's all free online. Every student's different. Some students would do better with a one-on-one tutor. Some might do better in a large Princeton or Kaplan review group. But some students do better even testing on their own. So you can buy a book right on College Board. You can buy a book through ACT.org as well. There's many different options. So next, Fair Test. As Mr. Nash said, many schools are going test optional. Fairtest.org has over 1,000 schools listed there that do not require the SAT when looking at their application. They look more at their resume, they look more at volunteering, they'll look at their letters of recommendation. There's several other ways. Like he said, many schools also are test optional, especially Fairfield, Holy Cross, and Providence. Okay, next, Mr. Namira.
Good morning. I'm going to talk a little bit about the college essay. Tim, Mr. Nash talked write about something that's very important that happened in their lives, or write about a person or an event that really resonated with them. So I think it's something that first or the last part of their junior year English class. So whoever they have this year for British literature, the last assignment is going to be get started on your college essay. Start thinking about it, get a rough draft. Over the summer, between junior and senior year, they should be working on it, and then when they come back, senior year is going to be one of the first things that they start working on and really complete. Keep in mind that depending on what schools or what colleges they're going to be applying to, they may have to write more than one essay, okay? So that may play a part into it also. Some of the, if you want to look at the questions that are asked that they have to answer and they have to write about, the Common App has some questions that you have to answer, and that's the website that you can go to. Some essay tips, you can go to one of these links and get some ideas about that also. Additional application components, as I was saying, some colleges may want to see more than one essay. In the past, some colleges even wanted to see a graded essay, but I think that's not, I don't think that's happening anymore. Sacred Heart in the past wanted to see a graded essay, but I don't think that's working. Portfolios to showcase their talents. Examples are art, architecture, graphic design. If your student has a special talent and they want to go into art, you're going to have a portfolio. You're gonna have to have drawings. That's part of the, it's as big a part of getting into one of those schools as their transcripts. Their portfolio is very, very important. If you're going into music, their audition is gonna be as important. The athletics component is a totally different beast. There's a whole recruitment process that we'll go through. We are going to have a presentation on March 9th at 6:30 here in the auditorium. If your son or daughter is and wants to play Division I, II, or III college sports, we're going to have a professional panel here. We're going to have a Division I coach talking about recruiting. We're going to have a Division II, Division III coach talk about the recruiting because it's totally different at each level. We're going to have a compliance director, I believe from Sacred Heart, talking about what you need, the classes, what to expect, talk about SAT scores, all that stuff there are rules for. And it's very important to know that going in before the whole process. So that's going to be March 9th at 6:30 here in the auditorium. Get a head start on application components. Letters of recommendation from teachers. It's very, very important that your son and daughter starts thinking about which teachers to ask, okay? It should be a teacher or teachers that they had more than once. It should be a teacher that they did very, very well in, that they have a personal relationship with. As I was saying, I think it's a critical part, teacher recommendations. If you're going into math, if that's something that you want to major in, I think you should get a math teacher to write you a recommendation, obviously. Resume, everybody should do a resume. On the Common App application, there's a part that you have to list all your extracurricular activities.
Also, join the Stereact in the office, please. Join the Stereact in the office.
So if you have your resume in front of you when you're filling out the Common application, it's a good source and you will not leave anything out. Plan your essay, discuss topics with your counselor. I always like, I know they're working with their English teacher. I know they're probably having their college essay read by their parents. I also like to look at it. The more eyes you have on a college essay to see if there's any mistakes, if the topic's appropriate, I think it's the best policy to go by. Meet with your counselor as many times as possible. Junior college planning workshops will begin on February 3rd. And these are workshops that we have with your son and daughter 4 or 5 times going forward this spring. We'll talk about everything that we talked about here, go over SATs, go over the whole college application process. It's in a small group setting with about 8 to 10 kids in there. They hate it because we're taking them out of study where they're probably just talking with their friends. So when we call them down, we go over all this information with them also. Last part I'm going to talk about, there will be a financial aid night for the seniors upcoming this October, where the person is very knowledgeable on the whole financial aid component of college. They'll go over the FAFSA, which if you want to get financial aid, everyone has to fill out that. Will have to have the FAFSA and the CSS profile in order to get financial aid. But he will talk about the ins and outs of the whole process. There are different websites that you can go on to get scholarships, national scholarships. One is fastweb.com. There's also another one, goingmary.com. And I know it's a very important topic when it comes to what school you're going to choose, is the money piece. So if we can help you out in any way, just give your counselor a call. I think that is it for me. Moving forward, Mrs. Clark's going to talk a little bit about our not new, but our internship
Well,
program.
kind of new. This is its second year, so still a little bit new. But I'm sure a few of you have already heard about this. Basically, last year was the first year that we allowed students, just seniors, to actually end their academic year early so that they could leave and have an internship at a placement that's related to what they're interested in studying or the career that they're interested in pursuing after college. So this is a really, really great opportunity for students to build their resume before they even step onto the college campus. What we're hearing more and more from colleges and college students when they come back to visit us is, I really wanted this internship, but they said I needed experience. How was I supposed to get experience when I was in high school? Well, this is how. So we established this program for students, and they have two options. What they're able to do is either submit an application to me, and I will pair them with a placement that we have available, or find them a placement that's related to what they're interested in. Or students can actually self-design their own internship. So if they know where and who they want to intern with, they can submit a proposal to me to be approved by myself and administration. So it's still early, but something to think about, because the sooner that students start figuring this stuff out, the better options that they're going to have. And then just a couple important dates we want you to be aware of. Next week, we're having our college admission night at 6 o'clock, so that's going to be here in the auditorium as well. And then, as Mr. Noguera said, on March 9th, we're having the NCAA information night.
Listen, do you want to speak about the college admission night is the first of the first time we're doing it here. I don't know if Tim wants to say something about it.
I did earlier, so.
Okay.
I think they got it.
It's going to be great, so please join us.
Yeah, if you can come, it's going to be fantastic.
Yeah, it really will. And then just, we also want you to be aware of those registration dates for the upcoming SAT and ACT, because like we said earlier, these are very popular test dates. Teenagers tend to procrastinate, as we all know, and if they wait until last minute, it's really possible that they're going to have to drive a far distance to be able to take the test on that date, because the high schools locally do fill up. So please be proactive about that and register with them early. And then I know we kind of ran over a little bit, but we are here for questions, so